Joe Manchin was pretty straightforward, though. He said that he thinks there are games being played with some of the programs being cut down by the number of years. He doesn't think a CBO scoring will show it to be $1.75 trillion or $1.9 trillion. He thinks it'll be much higher. Those other House Democrats want to see it, too. What do you think the CBO score will show?
Well, I think that this will show and reinforce that this bill is fully paid for. It's been a while in Washington, D.C. since we've really put together something that is fully paid for and will reduce the deficit across time. That's what this piece of legislation will do. We judge every piece of legislation on its own, and if you look at both the investments, the tax cuts, and the revenue increases in this bill, what you're going to see, it's fully paid for in the first decade and significant deficit reduction in the second decade as well. So we're confident that that's what we're going to see when you look at all the different component parts of this legislation. And again, we'll move this process forward.
Hey, Brian, I did get an email from David Walker, the former Comptroller General of the United States, earlier today. This is something he's been talking about for a long time, but I know it has echoes from other politicians, other people in both the Senate and the House. He says that now that the bipartisan infrastructure bill has passed in Congress, he would like to draw a federal fiscal line and just make sure that there's not an expansion of entitlement programs until Congress and the president have restored the solvency and sustainability of the Social Security and Medicare programs. He points out that those programs had over $65 trillion in unfunded promises as of September 30th of 2020. And the amount is growing by trillions a year. Now, again, this is something he's been talking about for a very long time. It certainly precedes this administration. But when you hear calls like that, what do you think? He'd like to see some sort of fiscal sustainability commission set up.
Well, I appreciate David's perspective and others. And frankly, it's welcome after a 4-year period where Congress and the president added $8 trillion in unpaid for deficit to the deficit, including the $2 trillion unpaid for tax cut in 2017. What we're bringing is a focus on doing things in a sound and fiscally sustainable way. You raise Medicare, for example. If you look at the Build Back Better bill, not only would it lower prescription drug prices for American families, it would lower prescription drug costs for the Medicare program. You look at the tax side of this bill, we would close a loophole in the Medicare self-employment tax, which helps to restore revenue to the general fund and to help support our long-term obligations. So that's what this bill does. It is the first time in quite some time that we actually take seriously doing something in a fiscally sustainable way while making critical investments like lowering the cost of prescription drugs, like lowering the cost of child care. So that's exactly what we've got going here in this Build Back Better agenda. And as I said, we look forward to working these things through and then a vote in the House next week.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.